When we took it on 30th of January, welcome back,
Yes.
Norrie. It feels like months since you and I have done a show together.
It does, Gordon. And you know the old adage, a week is a long time in politics. Well, two weeks away, it's just as bad, isn't it? Feels like a lifetime. So much has happened, and so much to catch up on.
There certainly is, and there's an awful lot to talk about today. And I've been watching, I don't know, maybe watching what's been going on with Donald Trump recently, and Sir Keir Starmer is, of course, in China at the moment, shaking hands with Xi Jinping. Now, I noticed that Trump has actually issued a warning to Starmer, saying that it's a very dangerous thing to do any kind of deals or make any kind of agreements with China. Uh, and he seems to be doing this a lot. He's also been warning Canada recently. The Canadians were offered apparently a new deal by Saab in Sweden, who've offered them, I think it was something like 72 Gripen fighter jets plus
Mhm.
6 early warning aircraft for about the same or less than the Americans were planning to charge the Canadians for a fleet of F-35. Trump's now warning Canada that if they take this deal with this European company for these jets, that there are going to be more incursions by American
Yeah.
F-35 into Canada. You know, he's threatening almost border warfare with these near neighbours. It's a worrying time, really, considering Trump has ties to Scotland as well. And
Well,
who's going to be next for the Trump treatment?
well, do you know this? We look at Trump and we look at his actions and we think he doesn't care anything for international law. The nation state doesn't belie any problem for him. Even though we've got our own rules and our own systems, he'll just go into any country and take what he wants. And he's trying to. It's like boiling the frog. The more you do it, slowly over the years, the more it becomes a norm. So this is
Yeah,
what and they've been doing this for ages. I mean, in Vietnam, way back in the 60s and the 70s, and then you've got your other parts of the world, Kuwait and all, where they've come in and rescued the oil for themselves. This is a slow play, and Trump's looking back in history and thinking, if they've done it then, I can do it now. And he's been so pushed at the front by the threat of the Epstein papers that he's
yeah.
got to create all these smoke screens all over the place. And the closer Epstein gets to him, the more dramatic the fires he's got to burn up. So we'll
Well,
look over there and talk about them.
speaking of Epstein, I noticed this morning on the internet feeds a photograph circulating of Donald Trump on an airplane um, with a child, with a young girl. A
Yeah.
little blonde girl who's sort of leaning against him, quite innocently looking at him. And this has been circulating as part of a leak, apparently, from these Epstein files. And if this is a kind of taster of what's to come, that is obviously deeply worrying to Donald Trump and his administration. So I don't
Well,
know what is going to come out from that.
well, added to that, Gordon, the survivors are now in their 30s, maybe 40s. So this is a way back, and they've still got the mental, emotional scars from all this, you know. And what
Yeah,
they said was quite interesting. We'll never get justice, they say, because we're up against these powerful men. But if we can put it out there what their actions are, and we know, and we can never trust those kind of people again, maybe it'll stop the next generation from being damaged like we were. So they're
yeah.
looking for a opening it out. So when you've got that quite balanced view of things from the sidelines, people are going to go to that and go, yeah, come on, for the future, for the next generation, let's get this out. And the
Yeah.
pressure will mount and mount and mount, and something will happen to Donald Trump. He'll the the public esteem. He'll realise he hasn't got a place in this world because of his heinous crimes, and he'll either take himself out or somebody will take him out.
Well,
And JD Vance will take his place, and then we'll all go back thinking it's normal again.
it's still the same people. I also noticed. I don't know if you read Paul Kavanagh Mawson's weekly columns under Wee Ginger Doug, his nom de plume, and he was pointing out that Donald Trump is one of the only convicted felons, if not the only convicted felon, ever to hold the office of President of the United States. And he's spreading his lawlessness across the planet. As you say, it's no respecter of boundaries or other people's laws. And even Xi Jinping, and this was interesting. I read this, I think, in the Times yesterday. Xi Jinping was quoted as saying that the world has become much more dangerous, has reverted back almost to chaotic, a global world order, which is chaos at the moment. It's not an order anymore. And I think, with all due respect to Sir Keir Starmer, Xi Jinping's probably got it right. I mean, he may be the leader of a communist country, but what he's saying is true. Basically, the world order has been shattered by Trump. And what's
Well,
left?
he's right. He's
What's
right,
left?
Gordon.
Yeah, and this is why the UK is being forced really to start dealing with China. It doesn't particularly want to deal with Europe because that wouldn't be popular with Tory voters in the southeast of England, but it certainly is definitely
Well,
changed dramatically.
there's a lot in there to
Yeah,
unpack. I think the first thing to say is Trump's got every right to be scared of China because the BRICS, this is a Brazil, Russia, China bloc, are
yep,
now a world force. Now, what that means is the barrel of oil has always been measured by the dollar. That's under pressure. They don't want to
yeah.
conform to somebody else's currency. Let's get our
Well,
own stamp on it. If that happens, Gordon, the American economy dies on its feet. It
exactly.
goes down
Because
because it's. And the second thing is to remember that we're talking about nation states again. If we think about this as somebody above that, controlling Trump and controlling other people, then you'll get this new world order on the top. And Orwell speaks about this in 1984. He looked at the Second World War and thought, how can the Bank of Zurich, a Jewish bank, fund the Nazis in killing Jews? You know, he says there's a higher power. It's not about Hitler or whoever's in charge in Britain at the time, or Churchill, whatever. It's about the people above that, and the banks and the money and the power, the real power. And so when you look at world politics, you have to have one eye on this, because this is what makes the world go round. This is why we're so afraid. Somebody said to me, Gordon, Norrie, we need action. We need action. I thought, wait a minute, what kind of action? And we started talking and talking. This is a long chat, Gordon. We got to this point where we said, right, well, what was the best thing we could do that could really make a change and get things going in a new direction? And one thing that both of us said was mortgages. If every person in Scotland on a Friday, one Friday, at the end of the month, didn't pay their mortgage, the banks would collapse. The
yeah,
banks, the banks don't have money. They rely on us to keep them going with our money. It's incredible, Gordon, how soaked into the system we actually are. So,
yeah.
are politics and politicians and political parties the right way to go? I doubt it. It's when people at the ground get a hold of what's their position in life is, and then start doing something about it. Then we
Yeah.
can affect change.
The
Not
other
until.
issue, no, the other issue that's been resurfacing recently, though quietly, I would say, is this issue of Scotland's own government not having powers over certain things, and this new Supreme Court case
Yeah,
on the prescription of Palestinian action, which was a United Kingdom decision to make the organisation illegal across the UK, including here in Scotland, is being used as a test case where the Scottish, presumably the Scottish government, is actually seeking a court, well, it's actually seeking a judge's decision on whether it is lawful for the UK to impose that kind of law in Scotland when we haven't decided we want to make Palestinian action illegal, but somebody else had down in London.
but Gordon, we've been down this road before. We went to the Supreme Court and asked for a Section 30s to have a referendum. They says no, you can't have it. You know, what do you expect when you go in when the situation's as it is right now? What do you
But
expect things? How do you expect things to change?
not made to remember that was the English Supreme Court that decided that. It wasn't the Scottish Supreme Court. We don't have a Supreme Court. We have the Court of Session in our
Court of
house.
Session.
Yeah, and that is where this really needs to be decided, because the Scottish
Okay.
judiciary needs to decide what is Scottish law and what is not. And this prescription of an individual organisation in support of Palestinian action, should that ever have been applied in Scotland? And if it's not legal here, then it would need to be repealed, or
Gordon,
some legal
do
instrument
you,
becomes
I'll
invented.
take you to a case in point where I'm trying to make this point. Maybe I'll put it a bit clearer. If you've got the highest law structure in Scotland saying, we say you can't take those two men off the boat, and it's in
Yeah,
law, and yet they're taken.
well, it's piracy.
It doesn't matter. They're still taken. Scots law has been railroaded. Do you see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So on that instance which you're talking about, it'll be railroaded. They will ignore it. They will put their own way into it. I remember at COP26 in Glasgow when the environmental leaders of the world came for a hee-haw, and there was a group there, oil extinction or something, rebellion extinction or something. I can't
Extinction Rebellion. Yeah.
remember. Extinction rebellion, and the police came out, and they didn't have Scottish police written on it. They
No,
had
they weren't.
police, and they were so brutal with these people. The Scottish police, I noticed further up with people wearing banners, were talking to them, trying to get them off. You know, the guys you see on the independence marches, the police sharing their hats with wee kids and all the rest of it, having fun with everybody because there's no trouble. But
Yes.
not at these big events where there's international leaders. There's something sinister happens with the police, and the
I think,
British police take over.
and of course, the reason why the British state sort of tips its hat constantly to America and off, pulls the old forelock, is simply because oil is priced in dollars, and because
Mm-hmm.
the dollar's value is based on the value of oil. The Americans have to control the global oil market, or as you mentioned earlier, their currency would collapse, simply because the confidence in it would be wrecked. And this is what all of this is about. This is what this Venezuelan oil tanker business is about. The Americans have seized are trying to seize the Venezuelan oil fields. They haven't been successful, though. Trump
Yeah,
seems to be taking the action of seizing tankers and extraditing people illegally from Venezuela. And then he didn't really know what to do with it after that, because all of a sudden he'd taken this action, but he couldn't actually take control of the Venezuelan oil fields because they're actually licensed to a lot of American companies anyway. Oil
that's
companies
right.
from the US and from Europe, they're
That's
the
right.
ones
Yep.
who have responsibility for that oil. So he couldn't actually take it. So he's kind of left himself halfway to seizing the oil and halfway not. Now he's just pretending that never happened. But yet we've got an oil tanker seized in Scottish waters, and the crew of that ship, or at least the captain of that ship, being extradited to America to be tried.
Yeah.
Now that's basically kidnapping and piracy in Scottish waters.
Yes.
I think this goes down to the reason why John Swinney has asked the United Kingdom to send warships to Scottish waters. Primarily, he seems to be saying it's to protect the oil fields, but it might be to try to prevent the Americans from seizing any more ships in their own waters. I don't know. The Americans seem to be spreading their piracy across the oceans to anywhere where there's oil tankers.
I think Ross Greer got it right. He says John Swinney's been a patsy to Donald Trump. It's time to realise that this is a dead end, right? You cannot go to him cap in hand and ask for favours. You won't get them unless it benefits him. And so John Swinney's making fires all over the place to stop him talking about, guess what, Gordon? Independence. He's talking everything but
Yeah,
independence.
I
Why would
mentioned that.
that be, I wonder? And if we
Yeah,
if we focus on that for a second, because I tell you what, God, I put out a tweet saying we're going to be on talk. Is John Swinney fit to lead the SNP? The amount of crap people throw at me for daring to ask a question is unbelievable. So we're going to challenge that, and I'll stand by what I say. Is that man fit for purpose? Over the last few days, we've seen boats in Scottish water being and with the protection of Scots law been railroaded to get these two guys off. That embarrasses me as a Scot. That should embarrass every Scot. Our sovereignty has been absolutely trash. You know, Scotland, who do you think you are? They're ours, we'll take them. We don't care what you do. And our law, crucially, our law has been seen to be a shambles. It couldn't even protect two people. God, I remember Kenmore Street when the whole streets came out and
Yeah,
stopped the Home Office deporting two guys who they thought were illegal immigrants. That's
yep.
what happens when people on the ground realise the power they have, and it shows you what the power the politicians don't have. Swinney's got nothing. He's not even got a backbone to do something. Put a police force up there, guard the boat, take the people off the boat, give them safe housing on shore. He could have done a number of things. He done nothing but watched it happen. What is that man doing? He doesn't represent me, and he's got the bloody cheek, Gordon, to ask for both your votes in May. We'll get on to that in a minute. Do you know
yeah.
this? He's getting none, no votes from this house, none, because unless you change that SNP, unless it's like a dying flower, Gordon, you'll know if you're a gardener. If you get a flower, you cut all the dead plants off so they can regrow again. What's Swinney done? He's recruited all the people from Westminster to apply to sit in seats for the Holyrood Parliament. So he's rewarding them with failure, and the flower won't grow. You need to get new blood in, Gordon. You need to get new faces. You need to get new ideas. You need to get new people. If you don't get that, you don't enthuse the people. When you see the same old faces you've seen for the last 10, 12 years in Westminster doing hee-haw, and you're putting them into the Scottish Parliament, be afraid, people. Be very afraid.
Well, you're effectively taking seasoned MPs who are supposed to represent Scotland in London, and then saying to them, well, your job's coming to an end in London, so we're going to give you a job in the Scottish Parliament instead. So, as you say, you're basically importing old politicians who have really not done anything very much down in London into Holyrood, as you say, instead of actually looking for new faces, new talented faces with new ideas. The country seems to be being led by old men and old women as well, I suppose, to be fair to women. And we're not seeing any new blood. We're not seeing anything. We're also, unfortunately, not seeing any kind of growth in the support for parties such as Alba, which ought to be, because the SNP in the polls at the moment are showing a decline. That we've been told for months that polls are buoyant, that there is a lead for independence in current polling. But today I read a poll which showed the opposite of that. It showed that independent support had slumped to 47%. And I think the support for staying in the union was 50%. It was around those figures, but it was a rebalance from where it had been, yes, being up here to now being reversed. Now, remember, this poll is coming from the UK's favourite United Kingdom polling company, YouGov, which has always had a bias against independence. But it's the first time that I've seen a poll, and I'm wondering why they've chosen now to publish it, because it was conducted some weeks ago, and YouGov never published the result. They kept it up their sleeve until now. Now it's been published, and it's showing support has slipped, according to their poll, by about 2 to 3% in favour of the UK. And this seems to me to be a sort of shaping exercise to try to convince us that we are now losing, that we're
Well,
losing support.
there could be something in that, Gordon. Only by where I visited a couple of days ago in Fort William. I visited there, meeting a pal, came back, but my bus was an hour to go, so I walked. Me and my pal walked along an area of Fort William which is new, 10, 15 years old. The houses are in a state of disrepair, 15 years. And people are living with black houses coming down the side. The gutter's gone. Fences have been blown over, all the rest of it. And I met a young guy, I can't remember his name, but he was on his bike and he was standing outside his house. And I said, "You sit here, mate, and just got a wee bit of a chin wag going." He goes, "Aye." I says, "What do you think of this?" He says, this is a shit house. This is do you know this? There's not enough jobs for all the people here. This guy was like, I don't know, 15, 16. There's not enough jobs for all the people that stay here. And then further down, we heard all these foreign voices. And then we found out later on, when I was out from a bus, all these guys talking about UKIP, Reform and Farage, and let's get action. So you might see a change in shift, Gordon, from going to independence, from people just wanting something done, something to blame on. And this is where we're going. It's a dangerous road, I can assure you. But Reform are peddling away. They're getting the airtime. They're on the radio. They're in the newspapers. They're all over the place. And people are looking at it and going, might be an option. If you remember, Gordon, the last election, Labour, we were telling people on this show, don't vote for him. Keir Starmer's he's a madman. He's crazy. They voted him in, got rid of the Tories, and they got in because they weren't the Tories. Reform are getting in because they're not the Tories or the Labour. They're a new force. And that's where I think in Scotland you're seeing this dip in independence because the young people are looking at other areas to vent their anger.
And of course, the young voters are, who are just coming up to age for voting now, they don't have the experience of knowing who it is who has formed Reform, because it's mostly made up of failed Tory MPs who have defected from the Tory party and joined this new Farage force, which doesn't have policies which make any sense other than keeping out migrants. That seems to be their only policy. Keep the migrants out. That's it. That's all they're about. I haven't heard any positive policy making from Reform at all, and certainly not in Scotland. And Malcolm Offord, who is their new Scottish leader, this guy is an English peer, if I remember correctly. He's
Money talks.
or something. He's a sir or something, a knight. Anyway, he's definitely not Scottish and has absolutely zero knowledge of Scotland whatsoever. Why Farage has put him in charge here, I have no idea. But Malcolm Offord is as far away from being a Scot as you can possibly get.
Well, I know why he's there. He's there to maintain a political position. Doesn't matter where it is. He's put his finger up, and the wind's blowing towards Reform, so he's going that way. Just like Priti Patel and all the others, Jenrick, the lot of them, they're moving into this new territory, because it's where people are now going to be voting. It's going to be a new election. This next general election, the Greens are surging in the polls. Where's this guy came from? What policies has he got? He seems to me, the Green Jack Polanski, he seems to me to be, is that his name? The Green leader, I can't remember his name, but he's
Ross
come on
Greer.
the scene. The Green
Greer.
Party in England.
Oh, in England, sorry. I think you're right. I think it is Polanski or a name like that.
Like that. But do you know what he reminds me of, Gordon? Tony Blair. He comes on and he's gung-ho and he's got all these, he knows what's wrong with everything, but he doesn't know how to put it right. You've just got to give him a chance. And he's got 180,000 people signed up to the Green Party. And I'm thinking, are you mad? You're just going in because he's not X, he's now Y. It just doesn't make sense.
But this is the thing, Norrie. I mean, we have this system where we vote in the Scottish Parliament, and it's supposedly to give us the comfort, the illusion of having some level of control over our own affairs.
Yes.
We elect these people to run the country for us, except that they're beholden to another government in London which tells them what they cannot do. And most of what they cannot do is the important stuff, like having trade deals with other countries, opening up trade routes, allowing free travel into and out of Europe. They can't do any of that. They can't do anything about defence either. We're forced to accept the British defence establishment in Scotland, and almost all of the active nuclear weapons that England has are stationed here. Now, to me, this strikes me as making us a target. And I noticed that Vladimir Putin recently issued another threat against the United Kingdom, basically saying, to stay out of of his way, basically, or else suffer the consequences. Putin now sees the United Kingdom as a soft target. It's a lapdog of the US, but the US has kind of cut us adrift, and Putin knows it. He knows that we're vulnerable now. And he also knows that we have a lot of nukes. And so he's basically said that we are now a nuclear target, a priority nuclear target for Russian nuclear missiles. There's been another escalation. He's pushing it again. He's pushing this nuclear narrative to scare the UK. And we are the ones who are in the firing line again, as usual, because we're the ones who have to host the damn things.
Well,
And,
we're so
this
inured to this, Gordon, because
us.
we're so inured to this because we've been given fear all our lives. Fear for splitting up the union, fear for if we don't pay our mortgage, fear for this, that, and the next thing. We live in fear. So when Putin says he's going to bomb us, go on then. What's the worst that can happen to Scotland that isn't happening now? You know, he knows. Putin knows he won't bomb Scotland because because even this month at this time, Gordon, all over Russia, Burns has been celebrated. Right? They know about Scotland. They know. They know. I tell you this. They know more about Scotland than the Scots do. Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know it was a Scotsman that created the Russian Navy?
Yes, I know that. Yeah, that's true.
And on their flag, their ensign, it's a reverted saltire.
Yeah.
They know about Scotland.
The other thing is, Scotland has always traditionally had a strong political tie
Yes.
with, simply because we were and still are, to a large extent, much more left of centre in our political ideology. We're much more socialist than most of the rest of the UK, except perhaps Wales. So that's recognised in Russia as a link, a common ideological link. Now, whether you agree with what Russia is doing in Ukraine at the moment or not is a different matter. Russia appears to be getting aggressive on Europe's borders. And the gloves are off at the moment because America is now seen as out of the game. Trump has taken the US out of global politics in the way that it used to be. He's basically destroyed the old world order, but hasn't replaced it with anything new. And it's now emerged that Donald Trump has a photograph, a framed photograph of himself and Vladimir Putin on the wall in the White House. That came out today. Another little sign of the way things have been going.
Again, Gordon, if we look at this, the whole world in a system where above politics, there's a bigger force operating these people like Putin, not Putin maybe, but certainly Trump and other leaders, then you find out they'll do anything for money to keep their profits and their control where it is. And so they'll make deals with the devil. They will. Trump will go to Putin if he runs out of money. Trump's scared of BRICS. What does that stand for? Brazil, Russia, China, etc. So what happens is when this new world order you're talking about changes and it's these other countries, then you've got to make a split within them. It's divide and rule. You'll make what Trump will do if America knows how to win by the rules or how the game is played. They'll start splitting up Russia with China, etc. And you'll try and make splits with them. But they're too big, they're too canny, these people. They know how to operate. They know how to manipulate the world markets. And Trump with his tariffs. Trump with his tariffs and his adherence to making these smoke screens all over the place now knows that he's bringing America down.
The tariffs don't work anyway. They're really just tickling at the edges. All the tariffs do is they make American consumers pay extra for the goods. It's a tariff on his own people. But the other thing that most people in Scotland don't know is, remember this oil tanker that was seized by the Americans and the two senior crew, basically kidnapped off it in Scottish waters. The oil in that tanker has been sequestered by Trump, and the value of it has been transferred into a bank account which Trump has control of. The Americans don't have control over it. He's stolen the oil. Nobody else. It belongs to Trump. He controls the money, the value of the oil in that tanker, which is lying in Scottish waters at the moment. He's basically stolen the oil. It's an act of international piracy. I mean, it's worse than Walter Raleigh was doing at the time of Elizabeth I.
Yeah.
Trump basically stealing oil, and basically he's got about just over £500 million worth of oil money in a bank account, which he only has control over. And the Americans have allowed him to do this, and nobody said a word about it. That oil, incidentally, came from our oil fields, and Trump has just stolen it. He's just stolen oil from Scotland, and nobody's talking about it.
That's right, Gordon. This is what's happening. Nobody's talking about it. We're talking, but there's so much to unpack. If we had a proper parliament with proper leaders, we would be doing something about that, even if it was just putting a shot in the air, right, to scare them.
Defiance.
But we did nothing. We did nothing. John Swinney slept on it. Well, 2 people were taken away. And he comes out with this stuff, well, we don't have the powers. Sometimes the law is an ass, Gordon, and you've got to recognise that. And you just say, damn the law. Where's the law made? It's made in Westminster. Why am I scared of Westminster? Oh, because they're bigger than me. And he defaults to a position where he takes cover. He's not the leader Scotland needs. He's not the leader we need. You know, when I'm looking around the streets and houses in the Highlands here and looking at the state of the place, it's gone downhill in the last 10 years. There's litter everywhere. People can't get their bins emptied. It's becoming a mess. Does John Swinney really know how to fix that? I don't think he does. I don't think he does.
If he did know how to fix it, he has basically waved a wee white flag and saying, I don't have the powers to do what I want. And
I don't have the money.
Instead of coming out and saying, this is ridiculous, we're not going to stand for it. And although I don't have the powers to do anything about it, I'm going to make it known in the strongest terms internationally, this is not acceptable. And the Scots will not stand for that. Even if we don't have the political power to do something about it, we need somebody who will speak out about it and not just sit there and whine that they don't have the powers. Maybe you don't have the powers, but he's still got a voice. He's still meant to be leading us, and I just don't see him doing that.
No. Do you know,
And
Gordon,
that was my point the other day, and I know I took pelters for saying it because it's John Swinney, but the fact of the matter is he's not being defiant. He's not shouting out from the rooftops that this is completely outrageous and it should not be happening. And the UK needs to do something about it right now. Not, can you please send some warships to stop Donald Trump from stealing oil and kidnapping people in our waters? That's too late. That's way after the horse is bolted.
Yep. Well, John Swinney's had photo opportunities and taken them with Keir Starmer, smiling together, having a good laugh. He's bowed to the king. A guy in front of him. He's adhered to all those things. He went down to the City of London for these deals with the bonds. Now, Gordon, anyone with any common sense will tell you that the City of London is the most corrupt place on this planet. That, the Vatican, and Washington, D.C., these 3 centres are where the money and the control is. And if you go down and make a deal with the devil, you're bringing Scotland down with you. And that is unacceptable for most people. And somebody on the thread says, we should just hold our nose, vote SNP 1 and somebody else 2. No, I'm not voting SNP at all. I cannot trust them. Trust is a valuable thing for us, Gordon. We put our trust in our barber. We put our trust in people who do things for us and can do things for us. When that trust is broken, we don't go there anymore. And for me, as an SNP voter, until 2 years ago, I'm out. I'm out. I've seen enough. I have seen enough, Gordon. I will not be voting SNP until they change, not until I change. So SNP 1, hold my nose. Not a chance in hell. No way.
Well, I can understand where you're coming from, Norrie. I don't know if we completely agree on this. I still haven't decided how I'm going to vote in May because I'm trying to figure out how best to use my vote to have some kind of effect over the
Mhm.
Parliament. Frankly, I'd like to see a change of leader in the SNP. Somebody, as I
It's
said,
not going
who's
to
more
happen.
spoken. I just don't see anybody waiting in the wings to take over from Mr. Swinney. He seems to be acceptable to the UK government. I think that's the way I would put it. He's a safe pair of hands as far as they can see. He's not going to stir up trouble for the UK government. And I think he's basically shown that by the way he's behaved recently. This visit that he made to the City of London, ostensibly to sign an agreement for investment funds to come from the City of London to Scotland. Now, you have to imagine that investment funding is not the same, obviously, as government funding. This is this is commercial funding for projects in Scotland, for businesses in Scotland, for big infrastructure projects, things like that. It's not a gift. They're not going to give us money. This is
No.
us. This is us signing an agreement that we are going to get ourselves into debt with the City of London only and not look elsewhere for better rates if we need to borrow money. We've tied ourselves to this one organisation in the City of London without ever looking anywhere else to see if we can get a better deal on investment capital. Investment capital is international. There's no need to go to the City of London only. You could go to the City of London. You could go to the stock market, in Europe. You could get funding from the US, you could get funding from China, you can get investment from all over the planet. There's no reason to keep it in London only. If it is only London, then that's deeply worrying.
The thing that on that, Gordon, you're absolutely bang on. You can go anywhere and pick up these things if you're an independent country and you're in
Yeah.
control of your own banks. The thing about if you're to seriously tell us, John Swinney, that you're going down to the City of London for a deal, what is that deal? What do they get back from us? That's what I want to know. How long a period does this last? Is it like PFI? Is it like free ports? What is happening, Gordon? Why is there not a vote on this? Can people on the ground not have a say in this? Can we not debate it? It's not good doing these carte blanche things on your own because we
I,
don't trust you. That's the thing. It's back to this thing. We don't trust the man.
I watched the televised report on Mr. Swinney's visit to the City of London, and I was watching the body language, the way he behaved. Now he's standing there, obviously in his dress kilt outfit,
Aye.
but he looked deeply uncomfortable. He was fidgeting, and he was hopping from foot to foot, waiting for somebody to tell him what he was supposed to do. And to me, that just reminded me of a period in history which I know about, you probably know about as well, called the Ragman's Roll, which was
Yeah.
when the Scottish nobility were required to process past the king and doff their caps,
Yeah.
and make obeisance to the English king. It reminded me of that period in Scottish history. He looked like he didn't belong there, that he was there asking for something meekly, and hoping he was going to get it. It didn't look to me like a leader saying, "We're going to borrow some money from you, but not only you, we're also going to look for funding from China. We're going to look for funding from investors in Europe." None of that was done. It was just London, and he was just hopping about, hoping that they would lend us the money to do stuff in Scotland and fund our businesses. To me, again, it's just another capitulation almost, that
Well,
we're
isn't it, Gordon?
it's making us dependent on one organization
It,
in
it,
London.
it, doesn't it exemplify then, Gordon, how a colonial state we are when we have to go down and beg for crumbs from the table of the City of London? We now know that there's no manufacturing base in England. London's been described as the big, huge washing machine of the world. It launders all the money that comes in. So, John Swinney, to get that money that comes from drug cartels or slave labour in other parts of the world, is that really where you want to fund Scotland from? Is it? And what are we going? Why are you not thinking Commonweal, a think tank here in Scotland, looking at all the angles, how to usurp the devolution settlement, how to go further, because we haven't touched the boundaries of it yet. If you want to have an independent Scotland, Gordon, you've got to push the boundaries. You've got to push and see how far you can get. If you don't do that, you're knackered. And Alex Salmond, to his credit, did do that. But since then, we've had lickspittle, supine politicians masquerading as independent saviours. They're not. They're lackeys. They're fake.
I noticed from the various statements coming out of the SNP about their policies, what they're actually selling, if you like, during the next elections in May. Independence comes about sixth on the list of priorities. I mean, Swinney has actually said he's going to prioritise things like schools and the health service and all the things that people want to be prioritised. That goes without saying.
Yep.
But what he's not saying is that he's going to be much more aggressive and vociferous about demanding these things instead of going cap in hand and hoping to get money from the City of London and nobody else. I mean, that's just investment capital for businesses. That means that all the businesses in Scotland that are getting capital in this way are beholden to the City of London. And it probably means that a lot of the businesses that come to Scotland are going to come from England and be funded from London in terms of their investment. And that means there are no Scottish companies with investment from anywhere else.
That's
and again,
right.
makes us dependent on the City of London.
Exactly. Exactly. What do we have? What's the price we have to pay? You're right, Gordon. We'll be dependent on them because interest in these things will be through the roof, just like PFI and Freeports. You're bang on.
And we won't have a choice about what rate that we repay these loans at, right? Because that's already been written into the deal that he signed.
Yes.
You're basically signing us up to borrow money from one place, City of London, for God knows how many years at a certain interest rate, and you haven't even shopped around in other financial institutions looking for a better deal. I mean, that's like going out and trying to buy a used car from somebody and only going to one garage and paying their price and never questioning it.
Bang
and
on.
never looking around to see if you get the same car at a better price somewhere else.
Bang on. Bang on, Gordon.
What is he thinking?
And what more could we add to this? You still thinking about SNP 1 and 2 after this? After hearing what we're talking about? No. The other thing, Gordon, if I could just bring this in, because it's something, it came from Wales, right? Wales are now on the cusp of putting in Plaid Cymru, right? Over in Ireland, there's a massive stushy. Fianna Fáil and Fianna Gael, the party in power, have just seemed to be as corrupt as anything. One of the finance ministers gave something like 850 million euros, Irish euros, to the World Economic Forum when Ireland's on its knees, and then he stepped down from his job as finance minister 6 weeks later to take a job, guess where?
Oh, yes, the World Economic Forum by any chance.
And
so he's bought his way in.
And here's the thing, Gordon, they're an independent country, right? But they're feeling the pressure of this corporate squeeze on them as an independent country. So, but they haven't got, their constitution is pretty weak, and this is what they're saying online. But what they're now saying, and if we had a leader in Scotland and a leader in Wales, a three-pronged attack to get the Celtic nations roaring. But you need to have a base in Scotland. This is why sometimes I think, what's the point in the Scottish Parliament? But there is a big reason. If we can get people in that Parliament from Liberate Scotland, from all over, who are new voices, who are louder voices, who are different voices, then you could see that hand extending down to Wales. You can see that hand extending over to the Irish people. It might not be the Parliament, the government, but it's certainly the people, because the people are going to be changing all over the place.
There is a Scottish-Irish kind of council. It's a loose affiliation, but one of the things I've always thought, and like you, I agree with you on this, is that all three Celtic nations nationalist parties of all descriptions and all three should really sign a pact, an agreement to campaign together for liberation from the UK, because
Yes.
if Northern Ireland and Wales and Scotland together campaigned for all their independence together, it's much harder for the media to ignore it. It's much harder for the UK to minimise that in the global media if all three countries are calling for it. And if there
Yeah.
is a strong bond between the nationalist parties in all three countries. If that became the Confederation of Celtic Nations or the Celtic Nations Party, then they could stand in elections in all three states simultaneously. And they'd probably win the seats if they have a strong enough message.
That's right. There's ways and means, Gordon. You've just come up with one great example. You could have one party representing all and then having that stand everywhere. Brilliant. But if you don't have discussion and you're always saying Scotland's economy compared to England and Wales, every single chance you get, you will get nowhere because your focus is on something else. If you said to the people of Scotland, our education system is failing compared to Denmark, they've got 5 million, we've got 5 million, but they don't say that, Gordon. They take the figures from England. And it makes for no comparison whatsoever. Here's another thing. Do you know the one thing that might unite us all in Wales and in Ireland and Scotland? And this might sound crazy, but food. There's going to be a food shortage, Gordon. And the Irish people are really up in arms about this because they've lost their farms to housing developments okayed by the Irish government. So all these, like just what we've got here, all our farmland is getting taken over. And so they've got 60 vegetable producing groups, farms left in Ireland. It used to be farmland. All over Ireland, there was farms everywhere. And now they're seeing their farms go. We're the same here. And now they're rebelling against processed food because that's not what they want to eat. We're rebelling against it here. So if you can take something like that, and here's the thing, Gordon, throughout history, when you cut off the supply of food to people and they look to you to supply the food for you, you've lost control. You have lost control. And this is what's happening with the corporate elites that are taking over the parliaments. Don't forget, corporate elites took over our parliament. Kate Forbes. Yeah. Kate Forbes is not for you and I. She's for herself and the greater good of something else. She goes and she leaves us a trail of absolute chaos in the Highlands with these houses. And when the SNP rise up and say we've built 280,000 new houses, they haven't. Private industry has.
They've made it easy for private industry to move in. If you're wondering why I'm looking here, I've got an interesting message here. This is from somebody calling himself the British Defence League. And it says, Scotland don't want it. We want UKIP and reform. Secondly, this is their words, by the way. Secondly, what's the high moral standard? Yous are normal. Yous will wish yous were British if yous did SNP were a right-wing party gone soft. Can you make any sense out of that? I mean, that is barely literate, and that is claiming to be the British Defence League. Honestly, that's the British education system for you.
but Gordon, you stumble on a good point here because it doesn't matter what's said. A lot of the times it's action that counts rather than what's said. And if you can gather people by your actions, now, one thing Reform are really good at is getting feet on the ground, a visible thing. In 2015, we had pipers marching, tartan, blue and white flags everywhere. I bet you any money, Gordon, that the establishment were absolutely petrified at this movement of people. And so they kind of downplayed it.
No, they downplayed
it. They downplayed it for themselves and back to us again, saying it was only, out of all the 5 billion people, you only got 100,000 marching. Wait a minute here. There's disabled, there's old, there's infirm and all the rest of it. So that's another 2 million that couldn't make it, and all the rest of it. In the BBC, for every one call you get, you can, rule of thumb, say that's 10 people listening, right? So for one comment, you get 10. It's a rule of thumb. If you have 100,000 marching, that's 1 million people, isn't it? Rule of thumb.
There are always lots of people who will not make it to a march, even at the height of the summer when the weather's fantastic. And there's also a limit on how many people can fit onto the streets of a city.
Correct.
I mean, I've been on 100,000 person march through Glasgow, Independence
So
March. Fantastic. But I could see that the city could barely hold them. It could barely hold that number. If you tried to put 1 million people on the streets, they would have to be spread across every town and city of the whole nation.
Can you remember how excited you were, Gordon, at that time?
Yeah, I do. And remember how optimistic everybody felt. It felt we had some.
Well, turn that round to UKIP doing it. People get a false sense of togetherness, inclusiveness, when they're fighting against something else. That's what happens. And this is where Reform are winning. They're getting people, there's a big march, a big demo, I'm going down. Because you get all your anger from not being able to pay your debts and your bills and all the rest of it. You go down there and you shout at an immigrant and you get it out. It used to be football matches, Gordon, Celtic Rangers. They didn't hate each other. They just hated the system they were in and they shout obscenities to get it out their system. You know, that's the only access to this emotion we have. And it's the easiest one to stir up hatred. You can do it. We can do it in this podcast, sitting on our backsides, talking hate all the time. It's easy. But to be positive, to want something, you've got to go out and do it and create something. And that's where the SNP have failed. Again, they have failed.
This is why I feel so strongly. Then people have been attacking me for criticising Swinney. But the point I'm trying to make here is that John Swinney isn't doing the things that he needs to do. Yeah. And therefore, another leader needs to come forward with the fire to make the case. And then the SNP's fortunes would change dramatically because they have a leader who is prepared to say the things that people feel, not just obsequiously go down to London and ask for some money from the City of London. That's not really leadership. That is just, again, just managing the British system or within the British system. We want somebody who will defy, who will shout the odds. They may not have the power to make everything happen that they promise, but if they try and if they lead and if they say these things and are angry enough and they get on the TV, they will get people following them. There just isn't that type of leadership around at the moment. No. And I'm afraid Mr. Swinney may have many positive aspects to his character, and I'm sure he's very good at the things he's doing, but he's not doing the things that people want him to do, and that's the problem.
I would qualify what you just said there, Gordon. He's proven to be a failure, an absolute failure. Whether it be an education secretary and the SQA, but absolute catastrophe. To trying to lead Scotland to independence. No, he's failed at every count. What you need, and could you imagine this, Gordon? I'll take your example even more, which I like, is if you got somebody like Alan Petrie or Eva Comrie as the head of the SNP, you would have a different SNP. Now, here's the thing, Gordon. Both of them were SNP. They were once, and so you get back the 2015 thing we were talking about, and you replace it again, and you put it in. Yeah, and you get Colette Walker and you get all these people into the Parliament. It's going to be like a breath of fresh air. But my big worry is you're going to be swamped. You're not going to get the exposure you think you're going to get on the media. You're going to be hammered by the media because that's what they do. I remember Tommy Sheridan being in the Parliament with SSP, and they had 5 or 6. They were banned from the Parliament for standing up and all kinds of stuff. You know, so it's going to have to be a structured attempt to change things and expose things. If you do that, and that's what you'll get from the ISP, then Scotland could see a chink of light in where we're going again, and that's all I can hope for in a new Parliament.
We need that energy and drive back, and I'm afraid I don't see it in Mr. Swinney, and I'm hoping to see it. Anytime I look at the political lineups that are standing for election, I'm looking for that one person who's got that spark, and at the moment I can't see it. So far.
Gordon, I know fantastic councillors working their socks off for really good and getting good results from hard work against councils that are chock full of opposition trying to put them down. Doing
Yeah.
deals, getting bicycle paths up and running, getting trees around the areas, getting seats for the elderly, all that kind of stuff. If you had those people in the parliament, you would see change. You would see drastic change. But instead, we've got these old statues doing nothing and thinking they're, because they've got a one up on Anna Sarwat or one up on Russell Finlay, they think their job's done. My God, that
I
shows how
often,
bad a
I,
position we're in.
Norrie, I often wonder if the parliamentarians in Holyrood were paid half of what they get at the moment. If they were only paid, say, 35,000 a year, would we get the same type of people in those jobs that are there now? Those careerists who are there for the money, they're there to get themselves seen on TV, they're there to get popular, they're not there to gain independence, they're there just to do a job. And that's what's wrong. If we can get rid of the jobs worth politicians, those careerists, and replace them with people who actually have ambitions for the country, it would change overnight. And
I
as I
think
say, I wonder if the wages were lower, would we attract a better quality of politician?
I think you would, Gordon. I think you'd get the hard grafter who comes in and thinks, you know what, I've come from the ground, and I know I have not forgotten my community. And people who come into Parliament and then go back to the constituency and meet the affluent and go to the Gaelic centres that have just been built and don't come out to the outer areas in Fort William. It's too far away, it's too cold, it's too rainy. But yeah, that's what the people live in. That's what the conditions they have to live in. They haven't got the houses and the proper facilities. They're met with derision, Gordon. Wouldn't it be great if you were a politician and you could go anywhere in your constituency and be welcomed as a good guy or a good gal? You know, it doesn't happen, and that's the problem with politics. Maybe a reduction in wages. I don't know.
Well, look at it this way, Norrie. If we reduce the wage bill in Holyrood, that money could be spent on local projects. So not
Yeah.
only would better politicians who are not there for the money, but you would also be able to disperse that money more widely and use it for better things. So I don't see that paying them less would be a disadvantage. I could see a
No,
lot of advantages from it.
No, I'm taking it further, Gordon. You could say, well, half the wages would go to a think tank like Commonweal, who rely on crowdfunding. You just say, nope, that's your money. Do some more good work. Do some more research. How can we get this? Go across to Denmark, get some ideas. We'll try and
Yeah.
put them to our system. We don't do it.
And, introducing a rule that says every candidate who's elected may only have one term in Parliament. And after
Yes,
that, you have to produce a new candidate. That's
yes,
new ideas. If you keep these same old faces in the same places, decade after decade, you get no movement. You get stagnation. That's
that's
what
right.
seems to be the hallmark of British politics. Keeping everything exactly the same and managing a steady decline into oblivion, because that's the UK at the moment.
Well, Gordon, we're coming to the end of our time, but you've just quoted or kind of paraphrased something that George Orwell said in
I know,
1984.
I
It'll
know.
get to a state where it becomes absolutely unbearable, and you'll look to the state for help because you can't look anywhere else, and you'll be controlled by the state because it becomes unbearable. I just mentioned bins everywhere, houses not fit for purpose, no jobs for people. What? That's not what a human's about. Gordon, one last thing about a guy. He's passed through Scotland. He built a wooden bike, right? I don't know if you've seen this guy.
No,
And
I haven't.
he built this wooden bike, and he says, "I built it not because I want to make money off it. I want to show people that my hands were meant to make things. They weren't built to press buttons on a
Press.
keyboard." And
Yeah.
that was the message he brought. And on that, that's what we need. We need our hands. We need to be building things, creating things. Because that's, as human beings, that's what we are. See, when we're stifled from that, and the last word will go to you, Gordon, because if we're on that managed decline into oblivion, we are doomed. We are doomed, a lot of us. And that is the saddest part of this whole podcast. We have to do something at the grassroots to do something.
Well, I remember, Norrie, years ago, a famous anthropologist once described human beings this way. He said that human beings are tool-using animals.
Yes.
We make things, and that is really what sets us apart from other creatures on the planet. We like to build things and construct, but we're not being allowed to do it. We're not being allowed to construct a new country.
Exactly.
We're being kept in this decline of potholes and crumbling infrastructure on purpose. And we need to get out of that. We need some leadership. And that is really my message. We need a strong leader.
Well, Gordon, what a show. Oof. This? We have to discuss this. Two of us have got to be brave and spell out what we think is happening around us, because we represent a lot of people out there who are really, really wanting to find answers. And maybe through this, they can share it and like it and respond underneath in the comments if we're right or wrong. What do you think? Because discussion is important. Can I say one last thing, Gordon? I know we're stretched for time. But see in Fort William, there's a new place called Robin's Nest. Robin's the woman behind the bar, the counter. She makes soup and sandwiches. She makes coffee for everyone. No Wi-Fi allowed. You come in there to speak. And if somebody's at a table on their own, you have to sit with them. And people are coming in. It's a brilliant system. Couldn't we have that all over Scotland, please? So we can go to a place that's cheap, sometimes free for people to get their soup free. Robin does this free, makes a big pot of soup. Come in. She's got overheads, for goodness sake. I don't know how she does it. But I tell you what, Gordon, that's what we need. And the more we talk to each other, the more at ease we are with each other, instead of being afraid of each other.
I agree, Norrie. I think we'll end on that high note today. But it's been an interesting show. It's been quite wide-ranging, I think we can say. But we'll call a halt today, and hopefully we'll see all of you viewers next week at the same time, Friday at 9:30. Anyway, Norrie, it's been a pleasure as usual, and I look forward to our next show next week.
Good on you, Gordon. Look after yourself and have a great weekend, mate. And everybody out there too.
Yeah, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye for now.
Bye-bye now.